Please rise in body or spirit as we sing our gathering hymn, number 346 in the Gray Hymnal, Come Sing a Song With Me. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Hillsborough. We are an open and welcoming congregation, so whether you're a member, a friend, or a guest, we're so glad you're here and joining us today. Since we are a lay-led congregation, there are a lot of volunteers who make our services possible, and we want to offer a heartfelt thank you to all of them. Today we will also be joined by Jeff Welty, a member of our congregation, who will be offering us his sermon titled Disagreement and Beloved Community. Before we create our sacred space and begin worship, let's take a moment to share any announcements. The one I have is to check your cell phones to ensure that they are silent during the rest of our worship time together. But are there any other announcements for the good of the community?
I have one. To lead off, today is the 29th anniversary of our becoming a member congregation of the UUA. The other founding members that are here, would you please stand up so we can see who you are? To get us started as we go down this new year toward our 30th, I found in my archives an announcement that came out in our newsletter the week after we became a member congregation. It reads, Charter Sunday, a great success. We had a joyful service with Dr. Leon Spencer, our UUA trustee, plus music written by Val Rosato and performed by Val and the other UUCH singers, a flute overture performed by Melanie Stecker, and an invitation to membership resulting in 25 charter members signing the book with at least 5 more planning to sign. Larry Peters from the UUA Extension Office at UUA headquarters in Boston called Amy Tattersall to congratulate us and to wish us well. And I contacted Val, and she could come up with a copy of the song that she wrote and the lyrics. And thank you very much, Val. I hope you're listening from Florida. I have a copy of it to give to Aviva. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kim. As Amy mentioned, today we're celebrating our 29th anniversary. So today is our Founders Day celebration. We've got a bunch of photo albums and just collections of memorabilia of the history of our congregation. So we've set that up out back under the tent, and we'll have some food set out as well. And we invite you all to hang out with us and take a stroll down memory lane together. And then we're also hoping to recruit some of you to help us in planning our big 30th anniversary founding smash next year. So please.
Thank you. You remind me that in her memory we have Barbara Green's notebook here on the altar, and you're especially welcome to look through it after the service.
Because our admin Amy is not here today, I thought I would go ahead and do the rest of the announcements that were in the newsletter. Unless anybody wants to do their own specific ones.
I'll do mine.
You do yours. I'll cover what other people don't.
Hi, I'm Alicia, and in 2 weeks from today, I will post the Passover Seder here. It will be at 4 o'clock on the 28th. I think that we should do it potluck style like we've done before. So if you feel inclined to bring a dish to share, that would be helpful. If you don't feel inclined, please don't feel obligated. Just come anyway. That will also be fine. But if you do bring a dish to share, please just carefully label all of the ingredients in your dish, because there are a lot of different food restrictions that have to do with Passover, and some people are more observant than others and will care more about, like specifically, and like Ashkenazis have different rules than Sephardis for Passover, and some of us are vegan, and so just clearly label all of your ingredients so that people know what they can and can't eat. Thanks.
Scrolling back up my y'all. I want to thank everybody that came out to the spring work day yesterday. We got so much done, and I don't know if y'all walked up to the building and were just like, we can come on. Yeah. But thank you especially to the buildings and grounds folks. We got a lot done, and there's always plenty more left on the list, so please join us for our next work day. And my last announcement is that today would normally be a GovCo meeting after service. Because of the Founders Day celebration, GovCo is meeting next Sunday. That's all.
If there are no more announcements, let us now prepare for our worship time together by reminding ourselves of who we are and why we gather. We are a community who strives to connect with one another in love. Our covenantal faith guides us to support each other in spiritual growth and deepening of faith. And today, we welcome you with open arms to our house of worship. We now create our sacred space by lighting our chalice, the UU symbol for the light of truth that each of us seeks, the light of hope that each of us brings, and the eternal light of love.
Our opening words today are "Come into this circle" by Andrew Pakula. Come into this circle of community. Come into this sacred space. Be not tentative. Bring your whole self. Bring the joy that makes your heart sing. Bring your kindness and your compassion. Bring also your sorrow, your pain. Bring your brokenness and your disappointments. Spirit of love and mystery, help us to recognize the spark of the divine that resides within each of us. May we know the joy of wholeness. May we know the joy of being together. Please rise in body or spirit as we sing our opening hymn, number 360 in the gray hymnal, Here We Have Gathered.
Ours is a welcoming community where we find connection, a sharing community where our joys are celebrated, and a caring community where our sorrows are lessened. Each Sunday, we take some time to reflect on the events that have occurred this week among our members and friends. Some choose to share aloud, while others choose to remain silent, and here we make room for both. For those of you who would like to share aloud, please take a moment before we begin to center yourself and collect your thoughts so that what you share this morning is personal, heartfelt, and brief. When you are ready, please come forward, tell us your name, and share what is in your heart. When you are finished, you may release a stone into the vase on the altar. For those of you who prefer to silently acknowledge your joys and sorrows remaining in your hearts, I invite you to come to the altar and release a stone into the vase in silence while Aviva plays I Know This Rose Will Open. And after she plays it through one time, you're all invited to join in singing a verse of the hymn. The words are printed in your order of service. We hold all these things within the heart of this community, both spoken and unspoken, by remaining silent for a moment as we consider what has been shared and how we might respond. Let us close with Amen and Blessed be. And at this time, let's sing the children to their RE class with the Children's Blessing, which is in the back of your gray notes.
Morning, everybody. Morning. As Amy and Kim noted, today is more or less the 29th anniversary of the founding of UUCH. Actually, it might be the 30th, depending on how you count. Because at this time of year, back in 1994, our founding members were having their first public meeting at New Hope Elementary School. The group didn't adopt Articles of Association until 1995, which is why, if you're a stickler, this is number 29 and not number 30. Now, New Hope Elementary School was the start, but over the years, this congregation met in a number of places. An Episcopal church, the Efland Ruritan Hall, and for many years, Carolina Friends School. And while the physical location of the group changed, the congregation was from the beginning a spiritual home for its members and an intentional community. So I wanted to say my word of gratitude to our founders for getting this whole thing started. It was interesting for me to learn a bit about the origins of UUCH, and one specific thing that stuck out to me is that our congregation was born in part of disagreement. Many of our founding members belonged to ERUF at one time, but eventually decided to part ways. Some thought ERUF wasn't sufficiently receptive to earth-centered faiths. Others didn't like that ERUF had a minister. Some just felt called to bring Unitarian Universalism to northern Orange County. In short, they didn't agree with what they had, but they didn't agree about what they didn't agree about. Of course, that puts our founders squarely within a long Unitarian Universalist tradition of disagreeing with things. Early Unitarians disagreed with the idea of a Holy Trinity, contending that God is a singular entity. Early Universalists disagreed with the idea that only a select few would ascend to heaven, advancing instead the idea of universal salvation. And when the two faiths merged and transformed into Unitarian Universalism as we know it today, we opposed the norm that a faith requires a creed, preferring instead a covenant between congregants rather than any agreed upon set of beliefs. In short, by nature, we are radicals, rebels, and nonconformists. We can be disputatious. We're pagans and Jews and atheists. We're vegans and libertarians and ecofeminists. We're often described as people who don't fit regular church. Given that so many of us disagree with so many accepted perspectives and beliefs, it should be no surprise that we often disagree with one another. Recently, at a national level, we've been busy disagreeing about the proposed eighth principle, which would commit us to work towards multiculturalism and to dismantle racism and other oppressions. Actually, if we agree on anything, and we probably don't, it would be the right of conscience that is embedded in the fifth of the seven principles. All we can agree on is that we don't have to agree. And I happen to love all this disagreement. It isn't that I like arguments and contentiousness particularly, but I've just never been one to go along to get along. I've never been a joiner. I like to make up my own mind about things, and my values and beliefs don't always line up well with the kinds of organizations that people typically form, community groups or political parties or churches. So here at UUCH, I finally found the organization that lets me keep all my idiosyncratic beliefs and still be part of something that's bigger than myself. That something bigger is beloved community. Unitarian Universalists talk about beloved community a lot, but I will admit I've always felt like I didn't quite know what the lingo meant. So in preparation for this homily, I did a bit of research. The phrase apparently originated with philosopher-theologian Josiah Royce in the early 20th century, but it was brought into the popular vernacular by Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. King saw beloved community as a global movement that would combat poverty and hunger, oppression and prejudice. Unitarian Universalists seem to view the idea a little bit more abstractly. In 2008, the Unitarian Universalist Association's Leadership Council described beloved community as a place where all souls are welcomed as blessings and the human family lives whole and reconciled. I don't even know what that means, and I think it's inspiring. But since we're UUs and we each get to put our own spin on things, I tend to think of beloved community as a place where people try to treasure and appreciate one another. A place where people give each other the benefit of the doubt. And I think our congregation aspires to be like that. We try to somehow walk together down our own separate paths of spiritual growth. Because I'm a bit of a rules follower while also being a nonconformist, and I know that doesn't make sense, I want to check a box here, which is that the UUA's theme for the month is interdependence. And I'm talking about interdependence right now. One way to think about beloved community is intentional interdependence, a sort of leaning in to one another, a sort of weaving together. And speaking of weaving things together, I'd like to try to put the ideas of disagreement and beloved community together. And I'm talking about any beloved community to which we might belong, not just this one. We're perhaps particularly prone to disagreement, but disagreements arise in any grouping. It's inevitable in our families, in our schools, it's in our towns, it's in our country. The sermon Kim delivered last week actually explored disagreements in a backyard between aphids and butterflies and kale. So whatever the context, how do we manage and address disagreement? Well, one way that people do it these days is they say, let's agree to disagree. Have you heard that? I feel like I hear that so much more than I used to, and I mostly see it as a way to push conflict aside. You think the Confederate flag is a symbol of Southern heritage? Well, maybe I don't think so, but I don't want to get into that right now, so we'll just agree to disagree. Maybe you think Israel's invasion of Gaza is a genocide. Well, maybe I see it differently, but I think that topic's a little bit too hot to handle, so let's just agree to disagree. Another approach to disagreement is just to avoid it altogether in the first place by not spending time with people who have different perspectives or breaking off a relationship if we think their views vary too much from our own. And we have ways of spotting like-minded folks, don't we? I mean, if they're driving a Prius and carrying that NPR tote bag, we're good to go. But the camo pants and the Red Bull, I don't know. G drops a WRX, so he's outside the box now. I'll admit I'm not above pushing the easy button sometimes when it comes to avoiding disagreement and conflict. But I think getting back to our congregation, we've done that sometimes too. Learning a bit about the history of UUCH, I understand there have been a number of ruptures over the years. And they're about all the kinds of things that all congregations deal with. How to treat members accused of sexual misconduct, or what to do about a minister, or how to manage our financial affairs. And most of them have led to some members breaking things off, managing disagreement by packing up and leaving the congregation, saying, I thought I liked those people, but it turns out they're just too different. Hey, there's a reason why so many UU congregations are small. That might be it. But whether we're talking about disagreements in our communities, in our workplaces, or at our dinner tables, the ideals of beloved community suggest a way to approach disagreement that's a bit different. A way that's informed by 3 C's: curiosity, candor, and compassion. Curiosity might be the most important of the 3. I've been reading this book called I Never Thought of It That Way by a woman named Monica Guzman. And the front cover of the book says that it is a guide to having fearlessly curious conversations in divided times. I've enjoyed it. And her central message is that we can build bridges across disagreement using curiosity. And her favorite question to ask is, what am I missing? I love that. It builds in humility, an assumption that we might each have blind spots, that I might be wrong and you might be right. I've learned a related lesson in my professional career as a lawyer. At the beginning of my career, I'd write a brief and I'd ask someone to review it because that's what lawyers do. Actually, it's what I was told to do as a junior attorney. So I did it, but I did it grudgingly, and I rejected almost all the feedback that I got. I mean, if someone spotted a typo or something, I'd fix it, but anything more substantial, structure, tone, I figured I wrote it how I wanted it. And if they didn't like it, that was their problem. These days, I'm embarrassed by that. I don't think it did a good service to my clients. I don't think it produced my best work. And I've made about a 180-degree turn from that. These days, if something I wrote bothers a colleague to the point that they'll take time to comment on it, I assume they've spotted something I missed that they're probably right. They're seeing something I didn't see. So unless I have a strong and particular reason for rejecting their edit, my assumption is to accept it. And if they don't clarify why they suggested a change, I'll ask, in the hopes of learning something that will make me a better writer or a better lawyer. Now, sometimes we get curious about somebody else's view and we still don't get convinced, and that's okay. Even when we don't change our opinions, when we hear people explain theirs, it makes it harder to other them. It's harder to caricature their thinking or make assumptions about the basis for their beliefs. And knowing them in that way, understanding them, makes it easier to stay in beloved community with them. The second C is candor. We aren't candid when we agree to disagree or just avoid disagreement altogether. We miss out on opportunities to state our perspectives and to hear others state theirs. The whole point of agreeing to disagree is to shut the conversation down, move on to something else. As Brene Brown writes, people often silence themselves or agree to disagree without fully exploring the actual nature of the disagreement for the sake of protecting a relationship and maintaining connection. But when we avoid certain conversations and never fully learn how the other person feels about the issues, we end up making assumptions that not only perpetuate but deepen misunderstandings and that can generate resentment. In other words, when we agree to disagree, we think we're avoiding a fight, but we're locking it in. What we're avoiding is the chance to learn something, to find some common ground, or to broaden our perspective. Only when we make ourselves heard and hear others in our authentic voices can we have genuine connections. Finally, compassion. Unitarian Universalist and activist Yuri Yamamoto writes that for her, a beloved community means a sanctuary where all of us can express ourselves authentically and celebrate who we are without the fear of rejection. That's more high-minded language that I'm not sure I can totally track, but I got the last part, without fear of rejection. In other words, confident that people will interpret our words and understand us with compassion, with love. They'll take our words in the spirit that they were intended rather than looking for their flaws and shortcomings. That they'll look for the grain of truth rather than searching for the hint of prejudice or selfishness. And that they'll continue to love and treasure us even if they don't agree with everything that we think. I had a conversation with my wonderful older daughter, Caroline, the other night. We were talking about a public policy issue. I won't say which one. And at one point in our discussion, she said, with kind of a wry smile, "I would never say this to anyone but you, but..." And she proceeded to express an idea that was relevant, insightful, and perhaps controversial or not politically correct. I'm so glad she felt safe talking with me. She was, as Yuri Yamamoto said, expressing herself without fear of rejection. She knew I wasn't going to cancel her for what she said. She knew she wouldn't be excluded from the beloved community of our family. And I hope someday to live in a world where more people are able to express themselves more openly, in more contexts, even to disagree more freely, without the fear of rejection. So I'm trying to do my part by receiving disagreement compassionately. But I know that's easier said than done sometimes. Disagreement can be emotionally charged. It can feel personal. It can be personal. And there's no silver bullet that's going to turn every disagreement into a kumbaya moment. We never sing kumbaya here. I don't know why. I think that would be a great song. But I've seen the benefits of curiosity, candor, and compassion in my own life and relationships. Questions like, what led you to apply for a concealed handgun permit? Or, what draws you to this or that political figure? Or, when you say substance abuse is a sickness, does that leave room for individual responsibility? Have prompted genuine and interesting conversations and opportunities for me to learn and grow. Going back to our founders for a moment, I think the architects of UUCH created the consensus process, in part in the hopes of having curious, candid, and compassionate disagreements. This isn't a sermon about the consensus process, and I will note for the record that I have some questions about whether consensus serves the congregation well at this moment in time. But whatever the pluses and minuses of the structure, I think the intention was just right. The motives were spot on. Our founders wanted to encourage, among and between us, dialogue, discussion, and mutual understanding. And I think that's a beautiful thing. I'll close with this thought. Given our radical, free-thinking ways, Unitarian Universalists should be masters of disagreement. We aren't, in my experience, but we should be. And maybe the idea of beloved community and the concepts of curiosity, candor, and compassion can help us come a little bit closer to that ideal. I think it's possible that each of you is free to disagree.
Each week, we take a monetary offering to support our social justice work in the community. Our plate collection this month will go to New Hope Elementary School, and you may donate by putting cash or a check into the basket. You can make checks out to UUCH and put plate in the subject line, or you can donate online by scanning the QR code in the order of service. Please join me in our prayer of collective gratitude found in your orders of service. For the love that surrounds us every morning, for the friends beside us, and for the generous gifts just received, let us be truly grateful. Please rise in body or spirit as we sing our closing hymn, number 1023, in the teal hymnal, Building Bridges.
We'll sing this through in unison a couple of times, and then we're going to split into a round. And John's going to lead this half of the room, and I'll lead this half.
Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach our divisions? I reach out to voices and reach out to visions. With all of our voices and all of our visions, fills we could make such sweet harmony. I reach out to bridges between our divisions. I reach out to voices and reach out to visions. With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony.
Our closing words today are "Let us begin again in love" by Lois Van Leer. Having let go, set our intentions, named our curiosity, committed our energies, and given ourselves over to lives of balance, purpose, and meaning, let us begin again in love. Now we will extinguish the chalice. Please join me in saying the chalice extinguishing words printed in your orders of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, nor the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Go in peace and blessed be.
Are you